Hello, I'm Jolene Rhodes, and I will be walking you through a lesson on determinants of 3 by 3 matrices. Before we can take a determinant of a 3 by 3 matrix, I think it would be helpful to review how to do a determinant of a 2 by 2 matrix. So let's review for a minute. Okay, so for example, if we have matrix A, which has items in positions A11, A12, A21, and A22, where the numbers refer to the row. The first number refers to the row, and the second number refers to the column. In order to find a determinant of this matrix, we can denote the determinant either with det of matrix A, and the way we find this is we are going to multiply A11 times A22, and then we're going to subtract what we get when we multiply A21 times A12. Another way to denote a determinant of a matrix is to put straight lines down on the side of the matrix that says that you want to find the determinant. And let's find a quick determinant of a matrix. So for example, if we have a matrix that has the numbers 3, 5, -1, and 7, in order to find this determinant, what we'll do is we'll multiply 3 times 7, which gives us 21, minus what we get when we multiply -1 times 5, which is -5, and 21 minus a -5 gives us a final determinant answer of 26. The other thing we need to know before we can do a determinant of a 3 by 3 matrix is when we look at a 3 by 3 matrix, each of the positions of the numbers in the matrix has a corresponding sign. These alternate. They begin with a positive in the first position, and then they alternate signs throughout the matrix. So even if we were to do this with a bigger matrix, we would continue to alternate these signs across the rows and actually also down the columns, as you can see. So we go from plus to minus to plus all the way through, and this would include if we were to do bigger matrices, say 4 by 4 or 5 by 5. So these are the two things that we need to know in order to be able to find a determinant of a 3 by 3 matrix. Now let's look at a 3 by 3 matrix. Okay, here we have matrix B, which has 3 rows and 3 columns. If we were to want to find the determinant of matrix B, the way to do this is, what we do is we pick a row or a column. Now for simplicity's sake for this example, what I am going to do is just go right across this first row. So what I'm going to do is we pick up our first number in that first position, A11. This gets multiplied by a matrix, a smaller determinant of a 2 by 2 matrix, which we manage to get by what we do is we remove the row and the column where A11 is. Now what you can see is what we have left is A22, A23, A32, and A33. Up above, when you look at the sign matrix that we have written above, in the first position, it has a positive sign, so this actually has a positive sign associated with it. Then what we do is we are going to continue across that row. So what we're going to do is the next thing we'll do is the same idea, but we're going to take matrix B again. What we're going to do is pick up the next item across that row. If we look up at our signs matrix, it has a negative sign associated with it, so we're going to put a negative sign here. We're going to put A12. We're going to cross out, again, the row, all of the items in the rows and columns that include A12. We're going to write down what's left, which is A21, A23, A31, and A33. Then, continuing across this row one more time, what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing. We're going to look up at our signs matrix. Here's the sign for that position, which is a positive sign. We're going to pick up the number that's in that position in A13. We're going to cross out the row and the column, and then we're going to write down the numbers that are left, which is A21, A22, A31, and A32. Now, in order to actually finish this determinant, what we need to do is to find the determinants of each of the three smaller matrices now, which is what we reviewed above. So, for example, what we would actually have here is A11 times the determinant of this matrix, which, recall, what we get that by taking this number times that number, A22, times A33, minus A32, times A23, and continuing across. So we'll have to find three smaller determinants in order to be able to find the determinant of our bigger matrix. Now, I think it would be easier. I am going to finish writing this so that you can see it, but what we're doing again is just continuing across. I'm going to have A13, determinant of that last matrix is A21 times A32, minus A31 times A22. And when we finally get all of this done, we will actually have our final answer as our determinant. So in order to do a determinant of a bigger matrix, what we do is we turn it into smaller determinants, which we already know how to find. Now, at this point, I think it would be good to actually do an example with some numbers. And so let's get ourselves a matrix. Now, I am going to write the matrix 3 different times so that I can actually cross out the rows and the columns. But if you were to do this, this would not be the best way to do this. What I would do is just use your fingers or 2 pencils or something to just kind of cover over those rows and columns so that you can see what the smaller matrices look like so that you can write them down on your paper. But that's a little hard on this pen cast. So I am going to write my matrix 3 times and then cross out the appropriate rows and columns so that you can follow along. Okay, so what we want to find is the determinant of matrix C, which is 4, 1, negative 2, negative 3, 0, 5, 2, negative 6, negative 1. And as I said, I've written this matrix 3 times so that we can actually see how we're going to find this determinant. Now, I am going to go across the first row as I showed in the example above, but I am going to do this problem twice and show you that it doesn't really matter which row or which column that you choose. You actually have a choice. But in order to stay consistent, we are going to go across this row to start with. So what we're going to do then is what? We're going to pick up this first position, which is 4. We're going to cross out the row and the column with a 4 in it, and we'll get our smaller matrix, which is 0, 5, negative 6, negative 1. And remember that signs matrix from earlier, so this had a positive sign associated with it. Then we're going to continue across the row to the next position. Remember, from the signs matrix, it had a negative associated with it. We're going to get a 1. We're going to cross out the row and the column with the 1 in it, and we will get negative 3, 5, 2, negative 1. And continuing across that row, we'll pick up this last. Remember, the sign from the matrix was, the signs matrix was a positive. We're going to get that number negative 2. And then again, we're going to cross out the row and the column with that in there, and we'll get a matrix negative 3, 0, 2, negative 6. Now, at this point, we just need to find the determinants of these smaller matrices. So we're going to get 4. Finding the determinant of the smaller matrix, we're going to multiply 0 times negative 1, which is 0, minus negative 6 times 5, which is negative 30. We'll have a minus 1. Again, times the matrix of the determinant of the smaller matrix. Negative 3 times negative 1 is 3, minus 2 times 5, which is 10. We're going to get a negative 2 right here. Positive plus a negative 2 gives me a minus 2. Determinant of the smaller matrix is negative 3 times negative 6, which is 18, minus 2 times 0, which is, of course, 0. Just finishing this up, we've got 4 times 30 minus 1 times negative 7 minus 2 times 18, which gives us a final answer of 91. Now, as I said earlier, when we do determinants of 3 by 3 matrices, you can actually choose the row or the column that you would like to use in order to find this determinant. So when we are actually finding a determinant of a 3 by 3 matrix, it would be helpful to us to actually choose a row or a column that has some zeros in it, because that will give us less mathematics and less arithmetic that we have to do in order to get our answer. So what I want to do is do this same example again and instead use a different row or different column. Now we do have a 0 right here in the center of our matrix, which means that I might want to either use column 2 or row 2 in order to find the determinant. I think we'll go down the column just so that we've done something a little different. We used a row last time, so let's use the column this time. Now again, I am going to write my matrix out 3 times so that you can follow along. Again, if I were you, I would just use my pencils or my fingers in order to cross those rows and columns out to get our smaller matrices. We will walk through one more example when we're done with this one so that you can just kind of follow along and make sure you have the right ideas. Okay, so this time what we're going to do is we're going to use column 2 in order to find the determinant of matrix C. Now when we do that, again, always refer back to our matrix of signs that we had earlier, our sign chart. And if we're going down this second column, the item in this position had a negative associated with it. So what we are going to do is have our negative from our signs matrix. We're going to put our number 1. We are going to cross out the row and the column with the 1 in it. We will then have negative 3, 5, 2, negative 1 as our numbers that we need. Then continuing down that row, the next number has a positive associated with it from our signs matrix. We're going to have the number 0. Now I am going to write this matrix down, but does it really matter? Because when 0 times anything is 0. So what we really need to, we could really just kind of skip this step right here, but I am going to write it down so you can make sure you're following along. This would be times the determinant of 4, negative 2, 2, negative 1, and then again, following down our column here, our next number is negative 6. If the signs matrix says that's going to have a negative associated with it, we'll have our negative 6. And then our smaller determinant that we want is going to be the determinant of the matrix 4, negative 2, negative 3, 5. At this point now, we're just doing the math. So we've got negative 1, determinant of the smaller one, negative 3 times negative 1 is 3, minus 2 times 5, which is 10. Plus 0, I'm not going to worry about that, plus 6 times the determinant of, this is 20, minus 6. So I've got negative 1 times negative 7 plus 6 times 14. And if we do that, once again, we get an answer of 91. Should not matter which row or which column you choose. So choose the one that has the most zeros, but be careful with the signs that are associated with each number of that matrix when you're finding the determinant. Okay, let's do one more example, and then we'll call this lesson done. Okay, let's look at our example. We're going to find the determinant of matrix D, which is 3, 2, negative 1, 1, 4, 5, 0, 1, negative 3. Now when I look at this, if I were to find the determinant of this 3 by 3 matrix, what I would do is either use row 3 or column 1. Now it's a choice. I'm going to choose column 1, I think, and so what I'm going to do is go down column 1. This is the column I want to go down. So what we're going to do is, again, remember that first position had a positive sign associated with it, so I will have the number 3. Now on your paper, what I want you to do is go ahead and cross out the row and the column that has the 3 in it, and you should end up with the matrix 4, 5, 1, negative 3. At this point then, we're going to continue down that column. The next position has a negative associated with it. we're going to pick up the number. If we pick up that 1, then our smaller, again, cross out the row and the column that has the 1 in it, and you should end up with a determinant of the matrix 2, -1, 1, -3. And then continuing, our last item had a positive sign associated with it. We're going to have a 0 is the third item in that column. And then our matrix over here, our determinant, is going to be 2, -1, 4, 5. Again, though, if you were doing this problem, you don't actually need to write this particular one because everything there, 0 times anything, is going to give us the result of 0. So when we do this problem, all we really need to do is we need 3 then times the determinant of our smaller matrix, which is 4 times -3 is -12. Minus 1 times 5, which is 5, minus a 1 times the determinant of this matrix, which is 2 times -3 is -6, minus 1 times -1, which is a -1, which is going to give us 3 times -17, minus 1, and in here we're going to have a -5, which gives us a final -46. Okay, I hope this lesson's helped you find the determinant of a 3 by 3 matrix. Thank you. Have a good day.